So here's what I'm getting ready to make today. This is kind of like a sheet pan-ish meal, except you need something with a rim because you do add some liquid at the end. This recipe is from Country Living magazine from 2015. And I've been making this for years and it's delicious. And you can see I just tore it out. Anyways, I just tore it out of the magazine and that's how I've been using it. I'm gonna double this recipe. So the first thing we need to do is to take the first 7 ingredients listed and get them prepared and put them in our baking dishes. I think ideally you would have a larger than a 9x13, but that's what I use for this. And since I'm doubling it, I'm doing 2 9x13s. I've got my oven preheated to 450. So our first 7 ingredients, we have sweet potatoes that we will peel and chop into 1-inch pieces. This is important because you need them to roast relatively quickly. Also, check out this behemoth. Isn't that crazy? You need 2 cloves of garlic minced. You need a sweet onion chopped. You need thyme. Now the recipe calls for fresh thyme sprigs. I use dried. I use a teaspoon of dried. You need 3/4 a teaspoon of salt, 3/4 a teaspoon of pepper, and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So I'm going to throw that all in each dish, and then I'm going to toss it around with my fingers. Now I'll show you that. So there everything is in the dish. I'm gonna just take my hands and toss it around and then we'll be ready for our next step. So here's the sausage, which we're gonna lay on top and prick with a fork a couple times. You wanna use approximately 2 pounds or 8 links per recipe. Now I had some more sausage in my refrigerator that would bring us up to 4 pounds, but I accidentally put it in the freezer, and so this is all I have thawed out right now, and I'm just gonna go ahead and use this. This is 6 links per dish, which is still plenty. It's still a good bit of sausage. So here they are laying over the dish, and you can see my vegetables are not super thick. You want about 1 layer because you want the stuff to kind of roast and you don't want to crowd it. So I'm going to poke these all a couple times with a knife, or you can use a fork. I'm going to put it in the oven at 450 for 20 minutes, and then I'm going to remove it and do a few more things. So while your first 7 ingredients and the sausages are in the oven roasting, something you can do in preparation for the next step is to take your white kidney beans, drain them, and rinse them. So you need a 15.5 ounce can. You can also measure out 14.5 ounces of chicken broth. They're like recommending low sodium chicken broth. That way you're ready to go with that as well. So also in the next step, you're supposed to use a bunch of Swiss chard or other hardy green. I have a really hard time finding Swiss chard. I don't know why. So I always use kale, and instead of buying it in a bunch, I like to buy it in the bag. It's a 16-ounce bag. It's already washed. It's already chopped up. It's very convenient. The only thing is I don't know exactly what a bag equals as far as a bunch. And you know, I do know with various bunches of vegetables, green onions and such, it varies. So I don't think it has to be exact. I'm going to throw 2 to 3 really good handfuls in both dish, and they will kind of cook down a little bit. They will remain still hearty because the kale holds up pretty well, but anyways, I just wanted to mention that. Now, if you notice here, there is a bread on the side of the dish. They do include instructions for how to make like a garlic type of bread that you can enjoy with this meal, and they tell you how to cook it as you're cooking the dish. So I happen to have a homemade Italian loaf of bread here. I'm gonna spread it with butter, sprinkle it with some garlic and herbs, And then when I put the casserole, not the casserole, when I put the sheet pan meal back in the oven, I will put this in for the last few minutes just to toast it so we can have it to accompany the meal as well. So here we go. It's out of the oven. It was in about 25 minutes. What I'm going to do is remove the sausages, just set them aside. I'm going to add in the other 4 ingredients that go in next, kind of toss everything around, and then I'll put the sausages back on top. Okay, so we're ready to add our other ingredients. Now, the recipe, I believe there is a typo because there is red wine vinegar, a tablespoon, but there's no instructions when to use it. So this is when I always use it. So what we're gonna add here is our chicken broth, and I will link the recipe in the description, or if I can't find it online anymore, I will type it all in the description. So we've got our chicken broth. We need our tablespoon of red wine vinegar. I'm just eyeballing that. We need our white kidney beans. Just add them in. And we need some kale. And I'm gonna add a handful or 2 of kale, and then I'm gonna mix it around. And I'm gonna add some more kale because kale is fluffy and it's best to add it in small quantities. All right, I'm gonna give it a mix. Okay, I have it all mixed. I'm gonna add a little more kale in. And mix that around, then I'm gonna put my sausages back on top. So there we are, we've got them all back on, and I'm gonna put it back in the oven. You notice I flipped the sausages over, the brown side is now under, and we're just gonna roast it a little more. We're gonna start with 10 minutes. So while you're in for the last go with everything else, the last 5 to 8 minutes, you can put in your bread and toast it up. So I just spread this with some softened butter. I sprinkled it with garlic, salt, and garlic and herb seasoning, and then a light dusting of Parmesan cheese. So I'm gonna pop this in now and just keep an eye on it. Bread is really depending on what rack you have it on and what kind of bread it is, how crusty, you know, how much of a edge you have sticking up and stuff. It can burn quickly. So just keep an eye on it. Just look at it every couple minutes. So here it is, all done. Yum. And over here is the garlic bread. I'm gonna plate it up kind of on these, I don't know if you have these, but they're kind of like a plate, kind of like a bowl. I'm gonna use just a regular spoon so we get some of the liquids, but there's a little liquid, but it's not like a super ton. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Check out my others, and I guess that's all. See ya.